Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganashadusham Tattvamasyarilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Dam Namami. Nithyanandam, hi, this is Manitya Ovyananda. Thanks for joining me today again. I wanted to speak to you about a story in Swamiji's life. I was inspired to tell you this story because of a very important click that he expresses when he's telling the story and relating the story from his childhood. And I think it's something we can all learn from. See, when he was a young boy, he got a Ganesha deity. And I give the abridged version because there's so many different spiritual truths and clicks to this story that's amazing. But basically, he got the deity as a boy. And he worshipped this deity. He loved it. He would do the puja to it. He would take it with him wherever he went. He would put it in the bed and brush the teeth in the morning, the same way he would do for his morning routine. He would do for the Ganesha. All these things. I believe he was around 3 or 4 years old. And so he kept on doing this. And then one day, because he used to always go to Arunachaleshwara temple in Trivandrum, which is his birthplace, he used to always go there, and periodically they would have these speakers and orators that would come and tell various stories of the deities or Hindu saints and various stories from the Puranas. And this particular day, Swamiji heard the story of Nambi under Nandi. He was a child saint who had an experience with Ganesha that was amazing. His father took care of the temple, this saint, Nambi under Nandi, and his father was feeling ill one day, so he asked the boy to go with the offering of Naivedyam to Ganesha to the temple. So the boy did that. And in short, he didn't know that the food was just offered and then taken away. He was literally waiting for Ganesha to eat. And so many hours went by, and he sat and he waited, and Ganesha was not eating. And this boy became so distraught. He was wondering, why is he not eating? And he was imploring them and starting to beg Ganesha, please eat. Then he was worried and having some fear that maybe his father would be scolding him and he would be in trouble because the Ganesha hasn't eaten any of the food. So hours and hours went by, and finally he had such a strong determination that, and knowing that Ganesha should eat. And he really believed and felt that Ganesha should eat, and something he was doing wrong was causing Ganesha not to eat. So he started to get into a mode of drastic measures. And he threatened Buddha. He said, he threatened the Ganesha, saying that if you don't eat, I am going to hit my head on these stone stairs. So he was just completely 100% determined that he would see through this event. And he did that. He started to hit his head on the steps. And as he hit his head, Ganesha suddenly appeared. And he consumed the food that was offered. So the boy, he had this divine vision because of his authenticity and his integrity to what his word was. He told his father that he would go and feed Ganesha. And so he had to make Ganesha eat. And he was being authentic with himself and thinking that, of course, the deities are going to eat. And why is he not eating? And trying to look in to see why it wasn't happening. In the same way, Swamiji, he heard that story and he says, oh my God, he didn't say it like that, but he said, I have to make the Ganesha eat. He's like, why is my Ganesha not eating? So he was determined then to make him eat. So he went through various different methods to make Ganesha eat. For days he was trying, and nothing was working. He even resorted to doing what they used to do in the old times, not even old times, but the recent past. Maybe they even still do it. But he was saying how the grandmas or the uncles, they would threaten the kids if they're not going to eat. Because, of course, even in my own life, I know how if you don't eat, you're going to just die. That's how you felt. If you miss one meal, you're going to die, which we know is not true. But that's kind of the threats that we'd get. So, in the same way, Swamiji had to handle that, and he was hearing all the stories from his relatives on how they would threaten the kids to eat. So he was using the same tactics on his Ganesha. And one of the things they used to do was they would lower the kids into the well as a threat. Every village and house in villages, they had these big wells in which they would get the water. And oftentimes they were big enough where you can swim around in them. So he began to threaten Ganesha and lower him down in that well, in the bucket. But he didn't have the heart to fully submerge Ganesha. He would always stop above the water and bring him back up. He would find some reason where he couldn't go on with that. So he kept thinking of all these ways. He even went to the temple, Arunachaleshwar temple, and he knew many of the people there, and he asked at the place where they give out the prasadam, and he asked if he can take something back for his Ganesha. So they helped him, and they gave him a bunch of food, a bunch of prasadam to take back, because he believed that the food wasn't right that he was giving him, that maybe his mother wasn't cooking the right food or wasn't cooking it properly how he liked it. So he went to the temple and he said, see there, there's a big Ganesha there, and he must like the food. So you must also like that food. So he went to get that for him. So he brought it back, and still nothing was happening. And then he tried all the swear words or the bad words he heard from his grandma, and all different things he tried. For days this went on. Then finally it hit him. And this is the part that I love. And I was again going over this today. He was thinking of everything in the outer world he was sharing. Then finally, he suddenly realized, and he says this here, he says, yes. And I turned and I looked in, understanding that the problem must be within me. Let me work on it. So all of a sudden that shift happened. And that's the shift that we also need to have. Because often we keep blaming everything else and everything under the sun, everybody and their brother, and so about everything bad that happens to us or good that happens to us or whatever it is. We blame everything else. It could be the weather, it could be the food we had, or the boss, made you in a bad mood, or whatever, everything. We can look outside and blame. But once you turn in, that is the key. So Swamiji says, he goes on to say, for every achievement, the inspiration is only from inside. For every expression, experience is only inside. Look in, turn in. Looking in and turning, and you will find the solution for everything. That is the only way to inner awakening. You are so obsessed with looking out, you never look in, because you were never told. You never tried it, and you never believed. Look in. That is the essence of life. As long as you think others are the source of a problem, it will never be solved. I realized I am the source. I am responsible. I should sacrifice. I should take the responsibility, and I should enrich. And Swamiji goes on to say, understand the biggest transformation that can happen to any human being is realizing I am the source. You just understanding I am the source and taking responsibility will transform your inauthenticity to authenticity. So that was a huge click for him. And it also, every time I hear that, sometimes I do forget that myself. And it's always a click, and I think even just a few months ago I read that, and again I put it in Facebook. Because every time I read that, I'm like, I know that. And even though I may do that throughout the day and realize that, still sometimes the full effect of that, it doesn't always penetrate or, happen. So we have to keep reminding ourselves of these things. So then Swamiji goes on to describe, and he takes responsibility for the situation, and he again brings the food and arranges it and all. And what he does is he decides that he's not going to eat until Ganesha eats. And that's what he tells Ganesha, I'm not eating until you eat. So he basically did this, and now imagine a small boy of 2-3 years old. 3 years old. I don't think he was more than 3-4 years old maximum. I believe he was 3. So imagine him doing this thing as a boy, taking such a strong stance. He always had such a will. Once he decided something, he was going to do it. And he completely did it, and he was successful. Because finally, after doing this thing for several days, he made it happen. See, initially he started to do this is because when he heard the story of the saint, he says, if he can do it, then why not me? See, when we see these people, and these great masters and avatars and gurus, they do these things that are, miracles, or they look like miracles, or the things that are beyond what we normally do or see, it puts that feeling into us, that there's other things possible than what we're doing. And if we can get that click that says, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Then we can see ourselves open up to that experience and open up to new possibilities within ourselves. So I won't share the ending of the story. I'll just have to tell you another day. But it's a very good click. So think about it. Always think from the context and the understanding that it starts from within you. And you can make it happen from inside of you with the right determination, the will persistence, and taking responsibility for everything. Thanks so much for watching again today. Nithyananda.